Good evening and welcome to News Night. In the next 60 minutes, Northeast Regional Minister calls for Ya-Naa's intervention in Wenchiki and Chereponi communal conflict as troubled communities displaces more than 600 residents.
I'm here to condole with them, share with them the difficult times they are going through. Give them assurance that we stand with them. Those behind this action will be punished.
Also tonight,
I want to assure political parties that any evidence that you have of any alleged wrongdoing at any level of the process, whether it's at the polling unit or at coalition level, please forward this information. And I promise you, as soon as the process is concluded, we'll then do the review as provided by law.
Tonight, INEC debunks claims of overvoting and manipulation of the process as results from Nigeria elections continue to trickle in.
You have promised Nigerians 68 times that beavers will work.
It is surprising that political parties who are supposed to be fighting now are in unison saying the same thing.
We are not in unison with them.
We have details as political parties stage a walkout of the national coalition process after their request for the halting of the process was overruled by INEC.
INEC have rigged the 2023 elections and we are completely dissociating ourselves from it and we know what to do next.
We're live in Nigeria as Labour Party's Peter Obi sweeps 2 key states so far. We'll take a look at official results declared in 7 out of 36 states so far, with Bola Tinubu getting 55% of the votes.
Meanwhile, here in Ghana, our own Electoral Commission chairperson, Jean Mensah, is ready to appear before Parliament in what is being touted as an impending showdown tomorrow over the controversial document that will now, if passed, the CI will make the Ghana card the sole identity document to register as a voter.
We believe that it is not time for the Electoral Commission to rely solely on the Ghana card as the identification document. The Electoral Commission is hell-bent on disenfranchising millions of Ghanaians from participating in the democratic process.
And in business, Finance Ministry targets payment of coupons and principals that have matured on the old bonds not later than 13th of March 2023.
And in sports, Ghana Football Association has approved request for Hearts of Folks League fixture against Kotoko to double as game for the President's Cup.
That and more in tonight's edition of Newsnight. Please do well to join us with your thoughts and comments via WhatsApp 055-1111-997. If you're watching live on Facebook, also on myjoyonline.com, you can leave your comments there.
My name is Mensah.
I am Emefa Apawu.
And we start tonight in Wenchiki, where violence has led to many fleeing. The numbers of those displaced, we're learning tonight, has hit more than 600 people. Now the intervention of the Ya-Naa is being urgently sought by the Regional Security Council. They need him now, they say, to quell the conflict in Wenchiki and Chereponi communities in the Northeast region. That's the appeal of the Regional Minister, Ya-Naa Zakari, after meeting with chiefs and elders in a tour of the troubled spots earlier today. 10 suspects have been remanded now for their involvement in the clashes which left 4 people dead, and about 600 now, we understand, have been displaced. We'll hear from the Regional Minister shortly. But first, listen to the District Chief Executive, Haja Zuwaira Ratu Nashiru, telling Joy News the 10 suspects have now been arrested.
As a result of what we went through in Wenchiki, and it's all because they were found around as suspects of people who were, making phone calls and directing as to how people should come out and shoot each other. So it was based on that security arrested them. They have since been sent to Yendi, and they were arraigned and, put behind bars for 2 weeks. They are to reappear, I think, next month. So I do not have the details of what charges may be leveled against them, until they do the thorough interrogations. We will not know that.
Well, so that's the DC for the area. Let's bring in our correspondent, Ilyasu Tanko, monitoring events today. They've been with the Regional Security Council as they tour the area and also ask for the intervention of the Ya-Naa. So, Ilyasu, what exactly are they hoping that the Ya-Naa will do in this situation?
Well, they are hoping that the Ya-Naa will speak to the chief of Wenchiki to resolve that particular issue. What we are understanding is that the chief of Wenchiki was the one who was doing the instrument on Thursday that resulted in this particular gun battle. So the Security Council is asking that the Ya-Naa and the Mampugo overlord intervene this particular matter to speak to the chief of Wenchiki, because we understand he intends to do more scheming in the coming days. So they are hoping that the Ya-Naa and the Mampugo overlord will speak to the chief of Wenchiki to stop this particular scheming.
What has been the response of the Ya-Naa to all this?
Well, the Ya-Naa hasn't spoken in this particular issue. This just came up in a meeting the Regional Security Council held with the Paramount Chief of Chereponi, who actually is calling for the arrest of the chief of Wenchiki and all those behind the Thursday incident. So yes, the Ya-Naa hasn't spoken on this particular matter.
Let's take a look at the communities that you visited today with the Regional Security Council led by the Regional Minister. Tell us about the state of these communities so far.
Well, we know that the violence started in the Wenchiki community. As we speak, we are currently in the Wenchiki community. It's almost a ghost town. Many people have deserted the particular community. I can see a lot of shops, a lot of houses burnt, and we understand about 500 people have been displaced in this particular community. We understand they are currently staying, some of them are currently staying with their relatives in the district capital, Chereponi, but also in neighboring communities in the Unyo district. We also visited the Changu community. This particular community, the entire community has been burnt down. We understand over 200 people are displaced in this particular community. We saw that foodstuffs and animals have also been burnt in this particular violence. The people have lost their source of water because, according to them, those who attacked them, that is where their source of water is, and they have been asked not to come there and fetch water. So we're shown very dirty water where the people are now relying on. And they are also saying that they need food, because we saw 100 of foodstuffs that was burnt. And they are saying that in the next 2 weeks, if they didn't get any intervention, there will be serious hunger in that particular community. When we went to that particular community, we saw palpable tension. The people were very angry because all the 4 people that were killed in this particular violence came from this particular community. And so they were, in the presence of the regional minister, they vowed that if nothing is done to do the perpetrators, they were going to exact revenge. And so it's really a very difficult situation in these communities where the violence erupted.
So thankfully, we are told about 10 suspects being grabbed, but listening to the regional minister and what the residents have been saying, do you get the sense that is the situation that the Regional Security Council have under control?
Well, not at all, because the 10 persons that were arrested, according to the district chief executive of Chereponi, they were not directly involved in the shooting. They were arrested because they were suspected to have been giving direction to those who were doing the shooting. And what the impression that we get with the Regional Security Council is that these communities are calling for the arrest of the heads or traditional heads of these communities that attacked them. And so they are calling for the arrest of the chief of Wenchiki and 4 other communities that they said attacked their communities. They say this is the only way that will bring peace in this area.
We're grateful. That's our correspondent, Ilyasu Tanko there. We can hear from the regional minister, Ya-Naa Zakari. He's appealing for the intervention of the Ya-Naa, like we've been saying. He's also assuring that masterminds behind this conflict will be brought to book.
I haven't seen what has happened. I'm here to condole with them. Share with them the difficult times they are going through. Give them assurance that we stand with them. Those behind this action will be punished. It doesn't matter who they are. Whether they are political leaders, traditional authorities, or whatever, nobody is above the law. So we will take them. We want to appeal to them to remain calm. They are the victims of the aggression, and they should trust that the law will take its course.
So that's the Northeast Regional Minister, Ya-Naa Zakari there. Meanwhile, the European Union said it is training security agencies, including the military, to effectively tackle conflicts and to check a possible influx of insurgency, which is on the rise in neighboring Burkina Faso. We can hear from the head of the European Union mission to Ghana, Ichard Razali, speaking on foreign affairs on the Joy News channel with Blessed Soga.
The European Union support to Ghana and other neighboring countries to prevent the consequences of the spillover of terrorist activities. We are currently supporting the Ghanaian border system. We have an active cooperation with the services in charge of immigration currently. So this is what we call the SBS project, but we have another project directly linked to this prevention dimension, which is called NOPREVSEC. We are active together with a different set of actors at local level, traditional authorities, NCCE and regional authorities to prevent and to ensure local mediation, prevent potential radicalization. We are as well active, we are currently active in supporting counter-terrorism assets of the country. We are training the military and the police, and we are handing over equipment like drones, so on and so forth. No later than 2 weeks ago, we are not sitting on our hands, and we are working as well in order to enhance and increase our support in those areas because the challenges are high.
So that's the European head of mission there interacting with my colleague Blessed Soga.
And we want to take you to Nigeria now, where it's been a tight race in its elections that started on Saturday. And now we're getting a clearer picture emerging now of the initial results from a third of the 36 states officially declared. And Emefa, from what we're reading on the INEC website, it is clear that the ruling party's Bola Tinubu has a strong lead currently, followed closely by the main opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar in second place, and followed by the Labour Party's Peter Obi.
Well, so as we speak, we have results declared in 12 states. Our in-house data analyst joins us in studio. There's been a lot happening today at the National Collation Center. We'll take you there. There have been walkouts from the opposition parties, amongst others, about hold-up, raising concerns about manipulation and vote rigging allegations, amongst others. But let's take a look at the results as we have it so far. Kofi, what does it look like?
Well, so live data from Reuters website, we have 15 out of 36 coming together, and then Tinubu has 4.26 million. Atiku follows second place with 3.2 million, and Obi 1.77 million.
12 states out of 36.
15 out of 36
so far. Okay.
Do you have percentages that just gives us a sense of who's, because I'm looking at the BBC page that sort of gives you a certain breakdown, and they put Peter. A lot of people are in Ghana very interested in the Peter Obi story because of the description of his party and himself as a third force. BBC puts him at 7.78% of the total votes. Bola Tinubu is at 55.44%. and Atiku Abubakar is at 31.4%. So the gap between it's very, very significant.
Of the actual data that we mentioned here.
But there's a caution, though, that I want to put out as far as the BBC's reporting of this is concerned. And most of the results in so far are from the Tinubu strongholds. So it is too early to predict a winner at this stage.
Because we have about 1/3, of the entire 36 not in yet. So it's too early. to know who is leading or to know who is likely to win the election.
Okay, well, thank you. Keep monitoring events for us, Kufeji. Well, so I was telling you earlier about activities at the National Coalition Center, and we know that there were some walkouts from the various opposition political parties raising concerns about beavers and raising also concerns about manipulation and vote rigging. But the National Election Commission, INEC, has been responding to these allegations. They've debunked it, insisting the allegations are false. We know that about 10 political parties, including the Labour Party, that's Peter Obi's party, and PDP, earlier asked the INEC to halt the national coalition process in order to resolve all the claims of manipulation of vote. We can listen to the pitch of these parties earlier.
I'm a person who values the integrity of our system. But when there are doubts, it's important we all come up on one page. Sir, the desire of most Nigerians is that this process should be seen as free, fair, and transparent. I have been in contact with several agents of our parties across the country. Now, the fact is that results uploaded from polling units in a number of states are not what is being collated.
Sir, please hearken to the cry and the voice of political parties. Don't look at any pressure. We know you can handle this. After all, when forces we are trying to remove you as INEC chairman, we stood by you. If there are areas where there are discrepancies, I know you have the powers to review.
It is surprising that political parties who are supposed to be fighting now are in unison saying the same thing. There is no point progressing in error, Mr. Chairman. We are racing to nowhere. This election started on Saturday. Today is almost over. I insist, in line with my colleagues here, that we get it right.
They said the voice of the people is the voice of God. Those of us who spoke from this angle are representatives of the political parties that participated in this election. And it is only responsible for INEC to listen to. I have just done a little research. You have promised Nigerians 68 times that beavers will work. And my brother, Barrister Festus Okoye, after I checked using Google machine, I promised Nigeria 118 times that beavers will work. We want to see it work and working by going to the portal to see all these results.
I will also correct the impression when it was said that the political parties are in unison. We are not in unison with, excuse me, Mr. Senator Melaye and Right Honorable, with all respect, kindly let me speak. We are not in unison with them. A lot of law has been procured, preferred, and quoted here, most especially Section 65, which says the Commission shall have the powers. These powers have been conferred on the Commission by statute, and it is the discretion of the Commission to exercise its powers as it deems fit. We should let the process run its course. So my appeal is for the Commission to proceed and make the results available. If we are not satisfied, we will approach the election tribunal.
Well, representatives from CSOs also had an intervention.
Chairman, please.
This is...
No, I know I'm not a politician and I don't intend to be one. But we all have a stake and we all have a voice. Let me appeal to our politicians to please calm down. The soul of this nation is in this hall today. And any individual that inflames this nation and create chaos, history will not forgive you. I don't like what has happened as an individual, but let's respect the law and let the law take its course.
Well, we cannot hear from the INEC chairman himself, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, first taking time to address all the allegations.
But I'm going to comment on three issues. The first one, which was the starting point of all this lengthy conversation, is over the allegation of overvoting in the result presented yesterday from Ekiti State. What is overvoting? Where the total number of votes cast is higher than the number of accredited voters. Based on the original of the document signed by party agents at state level and the spreadsheet before me, there was no overvoting in Ekiti State. The total number of accredited voters is 315,058. That is what is on the authentic document. Any other figure that shows anything at variance with this did not emanate from the Commission. We provided a detailed breakdown of the scores by political parties across the board. Towards the end of the spreadsheet, we provided 3 columns. The first column is total valid votes, and that is 308,171. Total rejected votes, 6,301. Total votes cast, valid or rejected, is 314,472, which is actually lower than 315,058. Let me recap. Total number of accredited voters, 315,058. Total votes cast, both valid and invalid, is 314,472. There is no overvoting. When you compare the total number of votes cast and the number of accredited voters, if there is anything, you may actually say that there was undervoting, not overvoting.
So that's the INEC chairman there. He also denied the parties their request for an entire coalition to be halted.
My second response is, are the figures consistent from what transpired at the polling units and what was uploaded or ought to have been uploaded to the IRF portal? I am satisfied that the figures on this spreadsheet emanated from the process that transpired at the polling units. The polling units are the only places where citizens vote. Whatever you do thereafter is just collation of results. And we have provided the vote scored by each political party. However, if any political party believes that the figures they have from the hard copies of the results given by their polling agents at the level of collation, that the figures are inconsistent with what has been provided on the spreadsheet that we projected yesterday, I would like that political party to forward the information to the Commission so that we can speak on the basis of facts. I like the suggestion made that the Commission has power under the Electoral Act to review results. But that power is contingent upon one procedure. The process has to be concluded first before you can then talk about power to review. I want to assure political parties that any evidence that you have of any alleged wrongdoing at any level of the process, whether it's at the polling unit or at collation level, please forward this information. And I promise you, as soon as the process is concluded, we will then do the review as provided by law. On this note, I beg you for us to proceed with the process. Thank you very much.
I mean, so this is the chairman of the INEC. They are, representative and equivalent of the Electoral Commission chairman of Nigeria. After he did this, the parties staged a walkout. They left the place, didn't they?
Yes, they did, raising concerns about why he was not ready to halt the process for them to resolve all the concerns that they've raised. A number of them, up to 10 of them, and they addressed the media. Senator Milai is a PDP representative that spoke on behalf of the parties.
We party agents haven't observed that the national chairman of INEC is determined to rig the election by making sure that results are not uploaded, by vehemently making a presentation that makes it look as if we are all here to rubber stamp the fraud that has been cooked between INEC and APC. We are saying that we are not here to rubber stamp the electoral fraud that have been prepared by INEC and APC. We are Nigerians and we all know that there is nowhere on the server that results have been uploaded. It's now saying we should wait for the process to be completed. All the political parties here staged a walkout to express the unfortunate politicization and commercialization of our electoral process.
How many of the parties are staging a walkout?
We are about 9, 10 of us here, understand? And we are saying that INEC is compromised, APC have influenced INEC, and we can see results are being changed. What is difficult in the INEC chairman showing the uploaded results so that we can compare and interrogate that with the presentation that is made by the state returning officers. INEC have rigged the 2023 elections and we are completely dissociating ourselves from it and we know what to do next.
This sounds very, very similar. I've heard this before somewhere in another country, very close to us, and close to Nigeria in the SAP region. Do you know that country?
I don't.
You don't know that.
You
country.
are the head of the political desk. Which country is that?
If you're listening to us and you know the country that this what you hear, it sounds very, very familiar. Please send us a WhatsApp 055-111-11997. But listen, so the opposition parties and generally left accusing the INEC of conspiring with the governing party to rig the elections. Again, it sounds very familiar.
Very, very familiar.
If you've heard that, send a WhatsApp. It didn't stop. It did not stop the coalition process from continuing. There are independent observers, though, and we are interested to know what they've also been observing. The ECOWAS sent a mission there, and in their statement, they acknowledge the high level of citizen mobilization, advocacy, and sensitization that preceded the elections, and so they are very happy with that sort of engagement. We're also waiting to hear the voter turnout as far as this is concerned. They did a careful analysis of the information received from the observers deployed, and they made a few findings that the late start of voting beyond 8:30 was an issue. That's one of the key things they've noted. Unavailability of sufficient quantities of electoral materials. Again, this sounds very familiar. If you know the place sounds familiar, please just send us a message. The visible presence of security agents discharging their duties in accordance with the provisions of the law in some polling units. However, they were inadequate. Security was inadequate, and this is the independent observer mission from ECOWAS. Again, polling officials and ad hoc staff demonstrated inadequate knowledge of their duties. Agents of the major political parties, that is the APC, the PDP, the LP, the Labour Party, were present in most of the polling stations. There was a use of indelible ink, which was observed. All votes were requested. All voters were requested to present their permanent voters' cards. Priority was given to vulnerable persons, which is good. They noted the setup of most of the polling units visited did not adequately protect the secrecy of the voting process. We've seen videos of people showing who they voted for. The presence of international observers from the AU, the EU, etc., and other local observer missions in polling stations was also noted. Voter turnout was generally low in most of the polling stations they visited. polls close in most parts of the country, stipulated by the INEC of 2:30 p.m. And then the prospective voters in the queue continue to vote, which is part of the law. However, the collation sequence differed from polling station to polling station. So although they had a clear rule to guide the collations, they saw some differences there.
Okay.
And there was a cooperative and non-adversarial relationship between electoral officials and party agents. There was also cases of BVAS failure, and that is the equivalent of electronic verification machines in some centers as well. But there were also incidents that they recorded. An attack on the perpetrated by Boko Haram insurgents in Goza local government and in other areas that they also observed.
So there's a first preliminary statement also from the EU, that's the European Union Election Observer Mission. Similar concerns they raised. So they mentioned that the introduction of the BVAS and the IRF for the 2023 elections was perceived to be an important step to ensuring the integrity and credibility of the elections. However, delayed training of technical personnel, as inadequate mock testing exercise, and a lack of public information on the election technologies diminished expectations and left room for speculation and uncertainty. Just portions of that. Also, the Commonwealth observers also released a statement describing the elections as largely peaceful. The chairperson of the group, that's the former South African President Thabo Mbeki, said people were largely accorded their constitutional right to vote. However, he did highlight challenges, namely some polling units being ill-equipped with sufficient lighting, and recommended INEC sets up a post-election review of everything that has happened so far. Well, we have election observer missions there. We've been hearing from Peter McMahon, who is with the Democratic Union of Africa. He spoke about polling agents who were hired to be at post hours to the elections and how unprepared they were, maintaining that INEC did a commendable job.
I went to polling units. I saw polling agents, but they didn't even have a pen or paper with them. So what were they observing or monitoring as polling agents on behalf of their candidates? I don't get it. So this IREV matter too. The IREV is the result sheet that has been captured by the beavers and transmitted on a portal for public viewing. But when the results are released at the polling unit, polling agents are supposed to get their copies. After all, they signed the result sheets before it will be posted and transmitted on the portal. So where are their copies? Where are their copies? And I think that if they could get their copies in a smart way, in an accurate and speedily, they could challenge the Electoral Commission or using the beavers.
So that's our own Makmenu with the NPP there. He's on the ground helping with the observer mission. He also had key lessons for Ghana ahead of the 2024 elections.
You know that Nigeria has 90-something million registered voters, but they close their election at 2:30 p.m. They start at 8:30 in the morning and close at 2:30. Ghana has to close our elections at 3 o'clock at IPAC. That's the recommendation we gave to the Electoral Commission, that we should close early so that we can have adequate sunlight, daylight, to count the vote and collect, rather than darkness and associated crimes and violence that may go with it.
And that's Peter McMahon there. After business, we'll return to Ghana and talk about our own peculiar challenges with the Electoral Commission. As you know, the Electoral Commission chairperson, Jean Mensah, is now preparing to appear before Parliament tomorrow with the controversial NIA subject of using the Ghana card as the sole identity document to register as a voter. That will begin for 2024.
We believe that it is not time for the Electoral Commission to rely solely on the Ghana card as the identification document. The Electoral Commission is hell-bent on disenfranchising millions of Ghanaians from participating in the democratic process.
Details of that after business with George. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans, and the Finance Ministry targets resumption of coupon payment for maturing old bonds and principals by 13th March 2023. And Ghana makes another significant progress in getting the international creditors to support its debt restructuring program as well as cancellation. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Live and Ghana Pay. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. And let's now settle for the details. The Finance Ministry has announced that it plans resumption of payment of coupons on maturing bonds or the old ones by March 13, 2023. Now, this was captured in a statement issued by the Finance Ministry earlier today. The new date will afford government an opportunity to finalize the necessary administrative process before closing the page when it comes to the domestic debt exchange program. The ministry has also indicated plans to use new bonds issued to restructure interest payment regime for the country. Well, let's hear the thoughts of finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business, the University of Cape Coast Business School, Seram Kara.
The way the statement is welcoming news for bondholders, and it's going to work hard, work in such a way that our external bondholders will also fit into the entire arrangement. The entire issue of the coupon rates that culminates into the interest rates that we find in the country are very high. And so the first statement, as we have stated, is that once we are able to ensure that we are now having a rate between 10 and 15%, that will become the benchmark value for bonds that will be issued and for any other fixed income rates that we have in the country. And that one way or the other is going to affect the treasury bill rates that we see currently. That will also ensure that government will not borrow unnecessarily and pay so much interest on this amount of money. This arrangement, as we have done successfully, will send signal to the IMF and then the international community is that government of Ghana is committed to ensuring that the right thing is done.
Seram Kaur is a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. Now, the country is making some progress in getting its international creditors to support its possible debt cancellation program. Now, this was after another major international grouping, that is G20, agreed to establish a creditors committee to look into Ghana's request. There is more in this Business Desk report.
For some, the development can be described as quite significant in the country's request to secure commitment from its international creditors on participating in the debt exchange program. This is because after the Paris Club of International Creditors agreed to set up a creditors committee on Ghana's debt cancellation request, another grouping, that is the G20, have also agreed on a similar move. The action also demonstrates the commitment by these international creditors, which includes some of the developed countries, that they are committed to the process in helping restructure Ghana's debt stock to sustainable levels going forward. This is because for some, this is what the IMF needs before it can proceed to approve Ghana's request for an economic program. However, this buy-in from these developed countries to reprofile Ghana's debt or possible cancellation will not come easy. This is because some of these countries are already putting forward some demands or call it conditions before they take steps to cancel Ghana's debt stock. Some of them include restructuring the country's revenue mobilization system and also ensuring that consumers pay realistic tariffs going forward. The country's debts to these international creditors ending December last year stood at $29 billion. The Paris Club accounted for about 1.9 billion Ghana cedis. Debts owed the multilateral stood at $8.1 billion. China, which owed the largest debt by a single country, puts the estimates at around $1.7 billion.
And that is the Business Text Report. Now, in a related development, the Finance Ministry has stated that the Global Ratings Agency, that is S&P's local currency ratings for selective default, has been reviewed to CCC+. Now, this acknowledges what government says is the completion of the domestic debt exchange program with the successful delivery of new securities to these bondholders. Now, for government, it sees this action as effort. So, what is being undertaken in this country being appreciated by these international agencies going forward, and what this will mean for the economy. Now, the Ghana cedi has picked up strongly against the US dollar after some days of decline against the greenback. It closed last Friday with the rate of depreciation against the dollar improving significantly. Some market analysts are linking it to improved liquidity support coming from the Bank of Ghana. Now, this helped the cedi to gain some grounds on the interbank market, with the commercial banks likely to get 12 Ghana cedis, 95 pesos as transaction rates for the dollar. Well, if you should turn to the Forex Bureau, you would need about 13 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos to the dollar. Now, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers have maintained that the best form of helping drive down the prices of petroleum products is the stability of the Ghana cedi. Now, Duncan Amo has maintained that he doesn't believe that the Gold for Oil program is the best option in addressing the current challenges with prices of petroleum products. It's coming as the chamber actually projects that there will be some significant reduction in prices of petroleum products from the 1st of March this year. Let's hear Duncan Amo on his thoughts.
If you recall, in November, December, the Bank of Ghana, through its the Forex Exchange regulatory framework, was able to reduce the cedi's depreciation and rather measure a gain. Within that period, you saw fuel prices reduce, both petrol and diesel reduced by averages of 7 Ghana cedis a litre, and that had nothing to do with any Gold for Oil program. So there's a proven procedure, there's a proven solution that stands to benefit every Ghanaian. You wonder why the Bank of Ghana would not be made to focus on these proven solutions, but rather.
And Duncan Amwa is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. And that's all for Business on Newsnight. Back to you, Evans. You're still waiting to see what happened in Nigeria. Interesting results and interesting dynamics.
I will get fresh results tomorrow. Thank you very much, George. Now, a few of your messages on our social media platforms, particularly on WhatsApp. Evans and Emefa, why do these politicians always accuse the Electoral Commissioner when the pendulum doesn't swing in their favor? Our dear country is no exception. May God help us.
Well, we have one from Positive Change in Medina. It says it's just amazing how the Nigerian INEC is supervising an election of over 90 million plus voters and making sure nobody is disenfranchised. While in Ghana, it talks about our own system that we operate. And then Akonsi Garaba from Tamale says, listening to the Nigerian politician parties threatening to reject the election results should come down and accept the outcome of the election results. So politicians in Africa should learn how to win elections at the polling stations and stop tormenting citizens after every elections in Africa. And you asked the question earlier about which country all this sounds like.
People have a good guess, huh?
Yeah, this one from Claudia in Kaswa says, I mean Ghana. Evans, that country is our own GH. And Sami Kumasi says, democracy is not a business meant for Africans. When will free and fair elections be held in Africa? And Lincoln in Akwitiman says, if you don't want the international community to meddle in our affairs, stay home and manage the economy well. Some of your messages.
Those are your views on the subject of the Nigerian elections. Talking about elections, we are counting down now to that showdown in Parliament tomorrow when our own chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Madam Mensah, is scheduled to appear before the House on this controversial subject of a constitutional instrument that will mandate the use of the Ghana card as the sole identity document for registering to vote. Now, the NDC is tonight renewing its stance that they will not accept that particular policy and its implementation. The CI, among others, will ensure that if you turn 18 and you want to vote next year, the only card you can use is a Ghana card. On Saturday, the NDC MP for Bolga East, Dr. Dominic Ayine, revealed on news file that up to 3.5 million cards belonging to the NIA and its partners have been seized due to government's indebtedness to the tune of $100 million.
The banks that loaned IMS, money to print, to help in the printing of the production of the cards, actually placed an embargo on the cards that were produced, and these cards were placed in a bonded warehouse. And so currently, the government had to cough up 82 million Ghana cedis in order for those cards to be released from the bonded warehouse to NIA. Okay, so as we speak, that is just $9 million, right? That is a drop in the ocean, because I know that IMF, Identity Management Systems, the private partner, is owed in excess of 100 million. So if you pay the company $9 million, you've done nothing.
Well, there was a confirmation of this claim by the Executive Secretary himself of the National Identification Authority, Dr. Kenatifa, on the same show, explaining that government is working round the clock to settle the debt.
Since about August of last year, we have experienced financial constipation in the system, and it's created a situation where even though we have 3.5 million stock of cards in a bonded warehouse, we are unable to access the cards, and the banks that have been bankrolling this are unable to further bear the cost, and therefore had refused to, as it were, release the cards to us. Government yesterday made some payments that positions us to be hopeful that going into next week, cards will be released. Now, when cards are released, 529,000 cards can be printed in less than 2 weeks.
So this has to do with money, $100 million worth of it. Apparently, the finance minister was in Parliament last week and was scheduled to address this particular challenge, but was unable because of the scuffle that ensued as Parliament debated the constitutional instrument. This is the Speaker, Alban Bagwe, talking about it.
Outstanding indebtedness is the reason why we believe that it is not time. The time is
the Electoral Commission and the National Identification Authority. But looking at the challenges that they earlier articulated to a number of your committees, and particularly when the EC met me, they also articulated some issues. We thought that it was important for the Minister for Finance to be available because the issues bordered on budgets, resources, logistics, and the creation of additional cost centers. So we wanted the Minister to be available at the Committee of the Whole to discuss with you how they were going to get the necessary resources, the money, to be able to make sure that this thing is implemented. Failing that, we were to prevail on the EC to add to the CI some clauses that could, in the meantime, take care of these challenges. And that is where the grantor clause was being asked to be inserted in case, at the end of the day, we couldn't get the EC, the NIA, to provide the ID cards to a larger, we're looking at about 90% or something, of qualified or eligible voters in the country. That was the purpose for the Committee of the Whole.
Well, with the Electoral Commission chairperson now scheduled to appear tomorrow, we're hearing already from the minority members in the House who are insisting that nothing short of a complete withdrawal will be tolerated. James Agaga is a ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee in Parliament.
It's not right for the Electoral Commission to rely solely on the Ghana card as the identification document, sole identification document for purposes of registering for the upcoming elections. Look, as you rightly put it, 3.5 million of those cards are in the possession of those who printed them. And why are they keeping those cards? They are keeping them because the National Identification Authority hasn't got money to pay for them. It's as simple as that. And so when you have an EC which pretends that the National Identification Authority is not challenged and that it is only their document that can be used for purposes of registering for the upcoming elections, then it becomes obvious to you that the Electoral Commission is hell-bent on disenfranchising millions of Ghanaians from participating in the democratic process. The linkage stems from the fact that the Electoral Commission intends, through its proposed CI, to rely solely on the Ghana card as the mode of identification for purposes of registering those who are qualified to vote for the, compiling a register for the upcoming elections. And so you find that these two institutions are supposed to work in tandem. And so where the NIA is faced with challenges, and we have time with that number made it very clear. In most parts of this country, people queue, they simply just can't access the NIA. And so it's important that the challenges that bedevil the NIA are dealt with before anybody dreams of using the Ghana card as a sole identification document for purposes of registering for our national elections.
Yeah, but
so
these are emerging.
Yeah,
but why are you not being fair to the Electoral Commission when they say, well, we started and commenced our processes way before these challenges came up with the NIA?
Right from day one, the EC was aware that the National Identification Authority has challenges.
Well, this is the minority's position on the matter, and we'll see what happens in Parliament tomorrow. However, the Electoral Commission has been explaining how come Madam Jean Mensah wasn't able to appear before the House last week. What do we know?
So they insist that there was no disrespect of Parliament by Madam Jean Mensah, and that when the invitation came, at the time the chairperson, the invitation came, they said he had travelled to Nigeria at the invitation of ECOWAS, ECONEC, for a peer exchange and election observer mission of the elections ongoing. Surprisingly, they said the meeting was cancelled as the minority side insisted on the presence of the EC chairperson at the meeting, and that they wish to state that contrary to the news item that the EC chair has returned to Ghana, the chairperson is still in Nigeria. She has not returned to Ghana, and we're hoping to see what happens tomorrow, if she would attend upon that invitation of Parliament.
Well, we'll see. The last week you weren't here, it was butu in Parliament.
I heard.
It was blows. So yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Let's do sports now.
Yes, well, even as the Ghana Football Association, they have approved the request by the Ghana League Club Association for the match week 18 fixture between Heart of Oak and Asante Kotoko to double as the game for the President's Cup. The game, which is scheduled for Sunday, the 4th of March at the Crassport Stadium, will see the eventual winner earn 3 points, as well as lifting the commemorative trophy. The chairman of the League Club Association, Kujofiano, he's been explaining, and he says the rationale for the decision is purely because of time.
I went to police units. I saw polling agents, but they didn't even have a pen or paper with them. So what were they?
The GFA, the two clubs, and the seat of government, we've decided that we should use the Super Clash as the President's Cup for this year. So on Sunday, the Super Clash between House of Oak and Kotoko will have the element of the President's Cup dovetailed into it. So at the end of 90 minutes, if the score should remain 0-0, the two clubs will get their 1 point each.
Kujofiano over there.
And that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of Newsnight. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com, and prices of petrol, diesel to fall between 3.7% and 4.04% per litre. Also, we have live updates. In Nigeria election, Tinubu takes early lead. And this evening, we're talking about it more. We're taking you to Nigeria on PM Express.
Yes, we're going to look at it thoroughly. You want to join us and see what the implications of the outcome will be for the sub-region.
Okay, and we have That's My Opinion coming up with Ya-Naa, our expensive free SHS. We're talking about it. You want to stay.